That's not what I signed up for. Welcome back to Truth Hurts, where we expose corrupt politicians, lying corporate media. I'm Jake Duesenberg, your host, broadcasting live from Roseville, Minnesota, in the belly of the beast, the liberal zombie apocalypse of Minneapolis and St. Paul. Joining me, as always, MAGA Jesse. What are we talking about today?
Yeah, we got a lot of good stuff. We'll be talking about Iran, Israel, the United States. We'll be talking about the bombings that took place. We'll be talking about the repercussions and different perspectives on where we think this thing is going to be going. Very quickly, the New York City mayor election is going on today. I remembered that William Beck and I, we've had these kind of conversations before. I see him in the comments section here. The question is whether or not a establishment moderate Democrat is better than a anti-establishment progressive socialist Democrat. It's going to be interesting. Cuomo versus a radical Muslim socialist. So that election is going to be crazy. We'll have to see how that goes. It's very tight. But we got other big important stuff to be talking about today because of Trump's attacks against Israel. Trump's attacks against Iran, and he's called out Israel too. So we'll talk about that. And we've got a couple of great guests. First of all, we got Gunnar Balstad.
Hey, how's it going, everyone? Thanks for joining in. Obviously, there's a lot going on in the world, so we'll try to make sense of it.
You know, I'm promoting this on Facebook, so I said, got a great crew with us today to discuss Iran, including MAGA Jesse, kind of the Trump side of this whole coin, anti-war lawyer Gunnar, and T-Mage, who has been to Iran.
I've been there. God, it feels like ages ago, but yeah, I went there.
Well, I think it's relevant here, and now we have an expert because you've actually been.
Not an expert, but I'll be today's expert.
Okay, there you go. Worth it to us. Let's start with this. Our sponsors today is Warren Wessel of Keller Williams Realty. By the way, I'm going to try to limit my talk. As you can tell, my vitamin D intake over the last, year has stopped me from getting any sickness. Now, I don't know how much is the vitamin D that I take, but I'll put it this way. In the last week, I missed a couple days, and all of a sudden I got sick. First sickness in a year. So who knows? Anyhow, I'm a little under the weather, so I'm going to let you guys do most of the talking today, hopefully. I'll probably break that rule. Anyhow, Warren Wessel of Keller Williams Realty. If you're looking to buy home or sell them, give Warren a call at 612-419-7453. If you're buying a home, give the good guys at John Galt Mortgage a chance at financing that home. You can go to John Galt Mortgage or go check them out on X or Facebook where they got a top-notch meme game. Also brought to you by Alpine Country in St. Cloud, Minnesota. We're live streaming on Rumble, YouTube, X, and Facebook. If you want to join the conversation and interrupt at the same time, hit that Rumble rant. So go to Rumble, watch us on there, and we're obligated to read your comment live on air. I want to start out today's show. Oh, there we go. I didn't even make it through the intro, and we already got a Rumble rant. Go ahead, Jesse.
All right, yeah, we got a $5 Rumble rant from O'Bannon. Before I get to that, I'll read everybody that's commented already. So we got Tucker91, Truth Wins and MN, Napkin 8, Beck for Liberty, and O'Bannon, and G. Balstad, and T-Wall for Life. So O'Bannon gives a $5 Rumble rant. Thank you very much. Says, how is MAGA Jesse going to spin Trump as something other than a warmonger? Well, stay tuned. You'll find out.
Honestly, I'll put it this way. Now, I got a little flack on my Facebook page from a lot of people in the MAGA universe, okay? But I'm going to just still say this. I'm very optimistic about the MAGA world because this is a great coalition that has a chance of actually relative peace in this world, okay, and less war. I was very critical of Trump. I still am a little critical of Trump. Trump might have done something that actually worked out in the end. I don't know. I think the jury's still out. What I will say is you guys both sent me articles that you wrote, very different viewpoints. I said to Jesse, I don't agree with everything that's in your article, but it's very nuanced and very good. So I said, let's start with Jesse talking about his position. So go ahead, Jesse.
Sure, yeah, Dawson, let's see here on the sheet. Please go down and select the A8. We can get into this article here. And what people will see that the crux of the article here, this was written this was written after President Trump had ordered attacks on Iran's nuclear facilities, but it was written before the Iranian response. And the general theory and conclusion, I believe, have been proven correct in the following days that have taken place. So the main point of this article is that denuclearization is a greater and more important mission than anti-war fights, and that the U.S. and the Iranian war would not result from the attacks. So first I kind of go into some of the a brief history on this, that Iran struck an oil deal with Britain in 1901, and that Iran was a partial World War II ally to the United States, and that Trump and Eisenhower, there's a lot of parallels that should be drawn, both in the Iranian policy and then both of them as general presidents. Both are the only two in American history to be president without holding prior political office. Both are skeptical of the military-industrial complex. Both support mass deportations, and both have a willingness to take decisive action against Iran. Trump often spoke highly of Eisenhower throughout his presidency here, and he likely began his understanding of politics in his formative years of development during the Eisenhower era, which was 1953 to 1961. And like most people, President Trump is a product of his generation. And Eisenhower supported alongside Britain the 1953 Iranian coup to overthrow the socialist prime minister, Mohammad Mossadegh. Mossadegh was trying to nationalize the Iranian oil industry, which was owned by BP, which is British Petroleum. Mossadegh had a narrow power in parliament and ultimately was replaced as prime minister with Fazleh Zedeh, who is a former military official and notorious grain hoarder. Dawson, scroll down just a little bit. I got some pictures in here just so people can see who we're talking about. That is scroll up first. There was another one before that, I think. Nope, there isn't. Okay, never mind. But that is the guy who ultimately ended up replacing him. So Mossadegh had narrow power within parliament and, like I said, was ultimately replaced as prime minister. Only 200 to 300 died within the Iranian coup being supported by the United States, supported by Britain, and the Iranian army to take out the socialist prime minister who was in there. Following the coup, the incumbent Shah of Iran, which was Mohammad Reza, was allowed to stay in power. After the coup, Iran became more culturally westernized, civil, secular. They supported women's rights. The clothing styles became more Western. There was more education, economic growth, business development, and what I also include in there so people can see those photos there, that is the socialist prime minister, Mossadegh, in court. He was ultimately sentenced to 3 years in prison and was spared from the death penalty by the Shah. Continue to scroll down a little bit.
Was he a democratic socialist, though?
Not a democratic socialist. I don't believe so. And that was the Shah. He was the Shah before the coup, and he was the Shah after the coup, because he was able to strike a deal with Britain and with the United States, and ultimately this was about oil more than anything else, this coup. But there were many positive benefits that came out of it as well. So continue to scroll down. We can take a look at what Iran looks like today. As you can see, quite militaristic, quite religious fanatics. Scroll down a little bit more.
I'm sure Team Major's going to have some issue with that. Why don't you read that Rumble right here? We got one from Tucker.
Oh, yeah. We got Tucker91 says, anyone worried about getting into a hot war with Iran, you're dumb. They are a declawed house cat. They fought Saddam for 8 years. We took Baghdad in 4 weeks. That's a great point.
How long were we in Iraq, though? I mean, that's the Tucker. That is a ridiculous comment there.
Yeah.
That's not. No one here is worried about us not beating Iran. It's the fact that we don't need endless wars. That's the problem. Look, we were in Afghanistan, with a much worse enemy in terms of like capabilities, which, by the way, ended up being the Taliban, which was not what the war is about. But interesting that it was about the Taliban, who today we still pay what $80 million a week or something like that too. That's what we're worried about. Is a prolonged engagement with no mission statement.
Right, and I think what Tucker's point is also encapsulating too is that wasn't President Trump's agenda, which I'll be getting into in this article.
And that's the heart of my criticisms towards Trump is this is a step in that direction. Now, it does seem at this point, if I could just interrupt you here, Jesse, because I want to finish your point, and this is really good. For those that didn't see this morning, there was an announced ceasefire. This is why I call this the strangest 48 hours of war, this podcast. There was a ceasefire agreed to last night. This is Trump, Dawson. This is the A2, I believe. This is Trump this morning. We brought out Bridget's swear jar. Not because Bridget swears, because she says we swear too much. Listen, this is Donald Trump off the cuff here this morning.
Iran violated the Yeah, I do. They violated it, but Israel violated it too.
Are you questioning if Israel is committed?
Israel, as soon as we made the deal, they came out and they dropped a load of bombs, the likes of which I've never seen before. The biggest load that we've seen. I'm not happy with Israel. You know, when I say, okay, now you have 12 hours, you don't go out in the first hour and just drop everything you have on them. So I'm not happy with them. I'm not happy with Iran either. But I'm really unhappy if Israel's going out this morning because the one rocket that didn't land, that was shot, perhaps by mistake, that didn't land. I'm not happy about that. You know what? We basically have two countries that have been fighting so long and so hard that they don't know what the fuck they're doing. Do you understand that?
I've never, all these years, never heard a president do something like that. I mean, yeah, you heard Biden say when he's VP, this is a big effing deal when they passed Obamacare. But I've never heard something like that so direct. That's why we put a 20 spot in the swear jar today on behalf of Donald J. Trump. So now Trump has tweeted since then, in all fairness, and did a media scrum on the Air Force One. And he's heading over to NATO, which will be full of problems over there. That Israel has stood down at this point, and Iran is going to abide by it. So once again, I'm hopeful, but that was where my original point, Sunday, was that we could escalate into another forever war. Sometimes this is how it starts, and you can't say it's not going to because we don't know. I'm very optimistic now, seeing what I see, but we don't know, and that's the last thing that we want. And it was clearly one of the big issues and why people voted for Trump. All right, Jesse, continue on.
Yeah, so Dawson, go ahead and go back to the article, and we can check out some of the photos of what Iran was looking like post-coup. So scroll down a little bit. As we can see, that's a recent photo of Iran, but during the 1970s post-coup, you can see that there was major developments taking place, as you can see in that photo there. Go ahead and continue scrolling. They had women and atomic energy. Continue to scroll. And you can see that this is the type of advertising they had. This shows some of the clothing that they had. You can see that women are wearing bikinis on Iranian beaches. It just goes to show the changes that have taken place to Iran since they have decided to go back to their Islamic regime. So mass protests were started after the coup eventually, following Islamic extremists burning a movie theater, locking the doors. They put jet fuel on it, and they set the place on fire, killing lots of people. The people of Iran ended up being convinced that it was actually the Iranian government. Historians don't seem to bear that into reality. It does seem as if it was Islamic extremists who were unhappy with Western culture and Western decadence entering into Iran. So it seems as if it was pretty clearly Islamic extremists and not the actual government that was behind that movie theater. But following that, Islamic Shia Islamist, I don't know why I wrote it like that, Iranian Islamic extremist, author and politician Ruhollah Khomeini became the Ayatollah, replacing the U.S. and Britain leadership. As you can see, there's a photo of him there. When the Ayatollah took over, the period is known as the Iranian Islamic Revolution, and 2 referendums were passed forming the Islamic Republic and their new constitution. However, the results are extremely disputed because they claim that 99.3% and 99.5% of the people were in support of these goals. So I think that that could not bear itself into reality at all. And Iran has been hostile to the United States and to Britain and the rest of the world since that point. And they are only on their second leader following this gentleman here. Now it is only Ali Khamenei. Go ahead and scroll down. We can see a photo of him. Lots of people have seen him because he is in the news. He is the current leader of Iran.
Supreme leader.
That's what they say.
Not to be confused with regular leader.
Yep. And, but to the point of this article here, the issue is not that they're anti-West. It's not that they're against our culture. It's not that they don't like America. The issue ultimately comes back to the nuclear weapons. And interestingly, it was actually Dwight Eisenhower, who Trump is following in the footsteps of, who actually introduced the Atoms for Peace initiative, which brought nuclear energy into Iran and across the world. Some people think that nuclear energy should be separated and discussed separately from nuclear weapons. However, Iran turned nuclear energy into nuclear weapons, starting with their covert project, Ahmad project, which was started in 1989, and the International Atomic Energy Agency and the United Nations Treaty on the Non-Proliferation of Nuclear Weapons had also said that there is an inherent risk of nuclear energy being developed into nuclear weapons. So while many anti-establishment thinkers hail nuclear energy as a cure-all, the industry is often monopolistic and controlled by bad actors. Deadly consequences of nuclear energy were on display with the Chernobyl disaster of 1986 and the Fukushima disaster in 2011. So a perfect world would allow for the utopian mindset of many nuclear advocates, but the white coat establishment are the true beneficiaries in the nuclear development. So now President Trump is tasked with setting the clock back to a pre-nuclear Iran. And while beating the, and scroll down just a little bit, Dawson, we can see the sites in which he bombed. So those are the 3 key nuclear facilities that were bombed within this. And, like President Eisenhower, Trump is willing to make a decisive action, willing to stand by it and not look back. In this case, it's not about regime change like it was with Eisenhower. In this case, it is purely about the proliferation of nuclear weapons. Nuclear weapons pose a unique threat to humanity, much more than any war. Nuclear weapons could wipe out and destroy humanity for all times, while war is going to be an inevitable problem that will exist for eternity. Although the United States should always strive to be against war and be not involved in anything, it's an inevitable thing that is always going to exist. So with it being generally unavoidable, it sets the stage. But Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth said that this is not about regime change, as has Vice President J.D. Vance, as has President Trump. And now President Trump is trying to force Israel to stand down and not pursue assassination plots against the Ayatollah. Go ahead and go back to the article, because there are many who have been seen flip-flopping on this issue either which way, but consistency from the author, me, can be dated back to October of 2024. In an episode of The Truth Hurts, this author's article, me, questioned U.S. Senate candidate Royce White and suggested that the U.S. bomb Iranian nuclear facilities should be considered an option on the table. Royce White agreed to the prospect and also agreed a war with Iran would be against U.S. interests. We don't need to watch the video, but anybody who wants to can check out this article and be able to see that, or they can just go to the interview themselves.
This is on your Substack, right? How do people find it?
I think I called it Jesse Smith Freedom. So
okay, I love
the
it.
Jesse Smith Freedom Substack.
Okay, and I want to have your viewpoint on here. I disagree with. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I just want to finish up here. I see what Trump is doing as a war on peace, a war for peace, because what he is doing is he is wiping out nuclear facilities, and like I said, nuclear facilities pose a unique threat, much more than war. And if Iran wanted to use nuclear weapons, whether it be against the United States or even more likely against Israel or someone else, that is a major problem. We can't allow it to take place by anyone. As the leader of the free world and as really the leader of the world, the United States has a mission and an obligation to protecting peace. If we want to be able to protect peace, we are unable to do so when we have hostile Islamic radical extremist actors possessing nuclear weapons. So in this moment, the United States denuclearized a massive opponent and will pay little repercussions.
Allegedly.
The fight to denuclearize the world is a much more important and impressive achievement for the Trump administration. But I link in here talking about all we have to do is look back on history. What did Iran do following the killing of General Soleimani? Almost nothing. And what was the response to this? Almost nothing. So the United States, of course, knew that Iran did not want war with us. If they do not want war with us, we don't want war with them. And Trump fooled a lot of people into thinking that there was going to be a war. What I'm talking about in this article as well is the fact that the masses were fooled in part by design.
Including us?
Yeah.
Well, that's a problem then.
No, it's
I don't
not,
like to be fooled by our president.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. All you have to do is follow what he's saying. That's what I did.
But he's everywhere. He even talked about regime change on Truth.
Here's the thing. If I'm able to piece it together, you're able to.
I'm just an idiot then, I guess, right?
Well,
okay.
You have a distrust of Trump, and what I'm saying is that
I have a distrust with anyone in power, to be honest with you. I think that's a healthy thing.
Right, but
Although, with that being said,
Trump had
certainly
always
navigates
said
it
his
better than
goal
all the
was for
others.
denuclearization of Iran. He never said he wanted regime change. He never said he
Well,
wanted
he
war.
did truth that out. I mean, that is. I mean, I can see why.
Yeah.
He definitely was trying to pull a fast one on people. I don't know if he was fully committed to that.
But the
Bibi
only way
Netanyahu
for
is-
peace is to get the threat of war. And when Trump has his own people convinced of it, and I know you say that he needs the permission slip from Nancy Pelosi and Hakeem Jeffries and Maxine Waters
The Constitution,
to say that okay, we need Maxine Waters to sign off and give Trump permission to bomb.
No, all 435 members of the House and 100 in the Senate.
No, majority.
But, okay, just focus on one of them, I guess.
Well, I mean, all of them are a bunch of clowns.
Jesse.
Well,
for the most part, you're
every
not
single
you're
one
not
of them.
wrong on that, but there is a reason that's in the Constitution.
Massey's one
And
of
it
those
would be a
clowns, I
complete
guess.
and utter failure if Trump goes to Congress, puts all of his plans public. I mean, that's how you lose. That's how it doesn't become a success. So what Trump had to do was take decisive action. And, in normal political times, yes, of course, you would want the legislative branch involved. However, this is a different era. We live in a time where the Democrats and, the majority of the Republicans, it is such a swamp there that you cannot have these people finding out anything. You have to take decisive action. We elected Trump as president for a reason, and I have zero faith in Congress to be able to do any of that. And you have to be able to have things feel volatile, even though they're not actually volatile. Because Trump knew all along his only stated goal was the denuclearization of Iran. Now that has been accomplished, the fight is over between us and Iran. Trump got what he wanted, and that's what I've been saying for a long time. That's what Trump's been saying for a long time. It's all bearing itself into reality, and all of the scare tactics and even the people who were fooled into thinking that there could be something that were against it. All of it added and contributed to the reason for why this was possible, because you have to have the belief that war could be possible. And like I said, since Iran didn't want it, it was never going to happen. But O'Bannon has a $5 rumble rant, says, my God, I can't believe how many people this thread include immediately spew BS talking points and jump on the war bandwagon. The Cheneys, thank you. The truth effing hurts. Well, I don't think anybody is really arguing for war. These are military attacks. That's not a war.
Well, hold on. Okay. Oh, I do appreciate your opinion. And the one thing I think you've got very right, even though I don't think he had the authority to do it, is Iran does not seem to want war against us, right? They do seem to back down. I mean, Trump said that they warned of the Qatar attacks, and the timeline seems to suggest that's true because they gave a warning to military personnel in Qatar to seek immediate shelter before the attack. So it does seem true that Iran doesn't want war against us. Great. And I don't think Trump is a guy that wants to put boots on the ground, right? But the idea that we're not at war with Iran is preposterous.
We're not.
Okay, Jesse, if Iran sent missiles and hit our military targets in the United States, would you say, well, those were just airstrikes? They're not at war with us.
Well, it would be an attack. A war.
Correct, just like we
war
did to them.
seems like a continued ongoing battle. Not specific military engagements. It's an ongoing, on-the-ground battle.
So what's this a ceasefire to then?
Say again, what do you mean?
Well, they announced a ceasefire. What's a ceasefire to?
What's a ceasefire
Of
to?
a
What does
war.
that mean?
It's a ceasefire of a war.
Right.
It was the world's shortest war. It was, as soon as we entered, we were out in 3 days,
Well, ours is like 48 hours. Actually, with retaliation, if you even call it that. Okay.
But it's. I think you're asking for like this transparency from Trump that is impossible to have, because some have to be able to be left out of the loop for any plan to be successful. If you're transparent in public about everything you plan on doing, if you're transparent about every single thing that you think, Iran is going to eat our lunch.
But that's what the founders envisioned.
No, they didn't. They did not imagine.
Do we need to pull up the Constitution?
They
of the
did
United
not.
States?
No. But they did not envision a scenario for.
All right, let's go to Billy 22, who paid $10 for Rumble Rant.
Nice.
Let's see. Billy22 gives a $10 rumble rant, says what O'Bannon said. So it looks like
Let's
you're
go to
also in
O'Bannon.
support of.
First of all, I love all you guys in our audience, regardless if you're promoting more airstrikes or less airstrikes.
It's over.
Well,
I'm not calling for any more
but
airstrikes.
you understand why some of us would be reluctant to say it's over when literally the ceasefire failed right away.
Well, I mean, the other perspective, sure, if we want to take the Ron Paul approach, which I actually link within the article, maybe we do want to watch that video, where Ron Paul is arguing that Iran should be allowed to have nuclear weapons. I don't think that makes a whole lot of sense. I think that that's also a threat to liberty.
Who
you know
allows
what you know what a threat to liberty is? Death. There's no bigger threat to liberty than death. And so, for Ron Paul to be arguing that, and I think Thomas Massey probably has the same opinion, that we should allow these radical Islamic extremists to possess a nuclear weapon. If we want to watch that, we can. But, Ron Paul also seems to think that it's okay for that to take place.
All right, Gunnar, let's bring you into this conversation.
Well, I want to start too, but I want to finish out that one with the War Powers Act that you were discussing.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
Go ahead.
Oh, you want me to talk about it?
Yeah, because I think your analysis there was spot. Coming from a lawyer, your analysis was spot.
Well, thank you.
Yes,
Gosh.
sir.
I did put this in here, or did I not? Maybe I didn't put it in here.
1973 War Powers Act. There's three reasons.
There's three provisions of the War Powers Act. I wish I had this handy. You know what, Dawson? You could probably just... Oh, here we go. I got it. I'm going to dump it in... Let's see. We're going to dump it in the A5.
So this really is the question of whether or not the president has the unilateral power to declare war. And
Well, yeah. So
Jake's analysis is
first
spot
of all,
on.
I think the Constitution is very clear, and the founders were very clear on this. The power to declare war is a power left to Congress, because if a president can both declare war and in Article 2 be the commander-in-chief of our army and navies, that is a king. Okay, so and you could read the Federalist Papers, and I can't quote you which one they were, but they had this discussion. It's public, and that's why they resorted to the power to declare war.
So what do
in
you
the
think
Congress.
Trump needed to do here? You think he needed to pass
Well,
a
you tell me.
resolution? No, you tell me. You're saying that you think Trump needed to get something passed through Congress.
Correct.
Do they need to say Trump's allowed to bomb Iranian nuclear facilities?
Correct, yes. To attack the sovereign
come
nation, yes,
on.
100%. And FYI, which I do think is an impeachable offense, although I'm not arguing to impeach Trump over this, because guess what? Obama and Biden and Bush were far, far worse. Far worse. Now, what's interesting about Bush, he did actually have authorization. So let's go to the War Powers Act in 1973. Dawson, I put it up there. You're going to see, I think it's in that big paragraph there in the middle. You're going to see there's three things that allow the president to make an attack. And let me get the language correct. So it says a situation where imminent involvement in hostilities is clearly indicated by the circumstances are exercised only pursuant to, one, is a declaration of war. So if Congress declares war, the president has that ability. Number two, specific statutory authorization. So, for instance, the authorization to use force in Iraq. And number three, a national emergency created by attack upon the United States, its territories or possessions, or its armed forces. Now, tell me, where do one of those three conditions get met here? They don't. We all know what was going on here. We know this was Benjamin Netanyahu's chance, his opportunity to try to take out the Ayatollah. That's what this is all about. He literally wants regime
That's not
change.
what it's about for Trump.
It's 100% what it's about.
No, not for Trump.
So he's opportunist, then, you're saying?
I'm saying that Trump's goal was denuclearization of Iran.
Okay, but you understand that there is no imminent threat. No one believes there was an imminent threat. No one was even talking about this 2 weeks ago. And in fact, if you go 2 weeks ago and briefly
people have
before
been
that,
talking about
Tulsi
this for
Gabbard,
years.
the director of national intelligence, was saying that Iran wasn't even close to getting a nuclear bomb, that they actually didn't have a nuclear program. That's his
had
own
enriched
director of national
uranium.
intelligence.
They had enriched uranium.
Correct, and you can
Right, which
understand
is
why
what
they
you
want
need.
enriched uranium. And by far beyond,
It's clearly made them more safe, right? Because it's made them a target. They're not more safe with nuclear weapons. They're less safe because we see them as more of a threat.
Wait, hold on a second. Do you believe they actually had a nuclear bomb?
No, not that but they had the materials. They were putting things together. They had all kinds of
But that
research.
doesn't
They've been
mean
doing
they have
this
a
since
nuclear bomb.
1989. They've
Correct.
been doing it since 89, of course.
Oh my God, they have been doing this. I mean, in fact, you could find Netanyahu talking about this for like the last 30 years.
Yep.
They're on the cusp of having a nuclear bomb. That's the problem that I have, and I'm sure some of the people in our audience have, is we've seen these lies. Let's go to Dawson, the let's see, A3. This is Benjamin Netanyahu. I think this is This is shortly after 9/11. This is in, I think it's September of 2002. So this is a year after the 9/11 attacks. This is Benjamin Netanyahu in front of our own U.S. Congress in testimony. He says, Israel acted because we understood that a nuclear-armed Saddam would place our very survival at risk. Does this sound familiar, just FYI? Does this tell me if this sounds familiar? And today, the United States must destroy the same regime because a nuclear-armed Saddam will place the security of our entire world at risk. And make no mistake about it, if and once Saddam has nuclear weapons, the terror network will have nuclear weapons. And once the terror network has nuclear weapons, it is only a matter of time before those weapons will be used. I mean, get rid of the N, get rid of the Q, and insert the N. It's the same talking point.
Here's the difference, okay? When Bush and Cheney were in charge, they said, they went with the lie that there was weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. First of all, this isn't a lie. Everybody knows that Iran is trying to build nuclear weapons and that they've been trying to do it for decades upon decades. And when Bush and Cheney were doing it, they want 500,000 troops, 8 years, and $2 trillion. Meanwhile, what does Trump do? A couple of pilots, and he's in and out in 45 minutes. So those two are not comparable.
Right. At this point, you're right, 100% right on that.
Right, and it was clear that this was never going to be anything more than that. Because,
but see, I don't think that. I think you brush this off as if we just know, we have foresight that it won't go any further than this.
I was able to write that the day before Iran retaliated. It was clear.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Maybe I'm just a product of a different generation that actually watched this happen and going, I don't know how clear it is. I will give you this. Trump seems far more reluctant than George Bush, and he isn't surrounded by exactly the same neocons. But
right.
When Mark Levin is your biggest cheerleader for a week, and Sean Hannity is your biggest cheerleader for a week, and Bill Kristol isn't saying anything bad about you for a while, it does seem a little interesting that maybe you're being surrounded by the wrong people.
No, and
you're not listening to Steve Bannon or Tucker Carlson, some of your biggest supporters, or Marjorie Taylor Greene.
That's why Trump is making an example out of these Thomas Masseys and these Tucker Carlsons, because then what is he doing? He's making the establishment think, hey, Trump's with us. And meanwhile, Trump's mission is not the same as the establishment, the rhinos, the neocons. They want to see the regime change in Iran. Like I've said multiple times here, that was not the stated goal of Trump, and that's not what he has shown anything otherwise.
Okay, so I'm gonna steelman Jesse's argument here, because in a way I think that.
Are you gonna ever bring up your own argument?
Yeah, for sure. I think that Jesse, Dawson, if you want to bring up the article next. Okay, so. I think Jesse's right here to a degree. I think that Trump has a difficult tightrope to walk here. Let's bring it back to Nixon. After he was out of office, there's a famous video circulating of him talking about the Israel lobby and how hard it is to appease the Israel lobby who wants war. Okay, so Nixon is saying that it is better for American interests to be friends with Israel's enemies and to engage in peace and trade, okay? That was Nixon. That problem has not gone away, okay? So I think that the reason why Trump bombed Iran is because he had to. I think if he didn't, he would be ousted one way or the other, including the Kennedy exit. So I think that Trump literally had his hands tied, and he had people.
I don't think people know what you're trying to say here.
Yeah. But Gunnar, and I'll get to it. We'll get to it.
Okay, we're gonna get to it.
But so we have people.
He's going deep on this one.
We have people screaming in his face that they have to attack, that it's an imminent threat, what have you. I obviously don't think that Iran was an imminent threat to the United States. The first coup in the 50s was not about nukes. When Wesley Clark issued his argument, 7 countries in 5 years, that was not about nukes.
Actually, we have the video of that. Let's play that. That is, where did we put that? Plans to go war A4, Dawson. This is General Wesley Clark, used to be Supreme Commander of NATO forces, so 4-star general. Said he was in the Pentagon after 9/11, like 10 days after 9/11. Go ahead and listen to Wesley Clark here.
Days after 9/11, I went through the Pentagon and I saw Secretary Rumsfeld and Deputy Secretary Wolfowitz. I went downstairs just to say hello to some of the people on the Joint Staff who used to work for me, and one of the generals called me and he said, "Sir, you got come in. You got to come in and talk to me a second. I said, well, you're too busy. He said, no. He says, we've made the decision. We're going to war with Iraq. This was on or about the 20th of September. I said, we're going to war with Iraq. Why? He said, I don't know. He said, I guess they don't know what else to do. So I said, well, did they find some information connecting Saddam to al-Qaeda? He said, no. He says, there's nothing new that way. They just made the decision to go to war with Iraq. He said, I guess it's like we don't know what to do about terrorists, but we've got a good military and we can take down governments. And he said, I guess if the only tool you have is a hammer, every problem has to look like a nail. So I came back to see him a few weeks later, and by that time we were bombing in Afghanistan. I said, are we still going to war with Iraq? And he said, oh, it's worse than that. He said, he reached over on his desk, he picked up a piece of paper, and he said, I just got this down from upstairs, meaning the Secretary of Defense's office today, and he said, this is a memo that describes how we're going to take out 7 countries in 5 years, starting with Iraq and then Syria, Lebanon, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and finishing off Iran.
I mean, plus we've been intervening with Iran a long time, as you mentioned in your history. So no big shocker on that one.
Right.
But it does seem to be a continuation of
We
the
got a
plan.
$5 rumble rant here. So
By the way,
Billy
crafted by
22,
neocons.
Billy 22 gives a $5 rumble rant. Says, sovereignty, Jesse, who has it? Just the United States, Iran, any foreign country, NATO, Brussels? Should all other countries check with the U.S. before they do anything inside their own borders? Well.
Right.
Billy 22, I would say the only time they really need to check is when we're talking about nuclear weapons. And, President Trump is going to try to denuclearize the other nuclear forces, including Israel, including China, including France, and including Russia and some of the others. So
He's going to denuclearize Russia?
Yes, they're going.
Wow.
Well, they came to agreements to, in the first term, they've already come to new agreements this term to get rid of certain nuclear weapons, and they're going to
but he won't
decommission them. And
to me, denuclearization means you're without nuclear bombs, which no sane nation would do that.
Probably, but what we can do is
I think we got to
move that direction.
We would love for no nation to have nuclear bombs. It does seem like a great objective. It's not realistic, right?
Right. Well, that's why the stated goal has to be as much denuclearization as possible, which is what Trump is doing. And
But
Trump got that in Iran with the least repercussions possible.
See, this is what confuses me. It's just this wasn't talked about 2 weeks ago, and all of a sudden, no, they're on the cusp of a nuclear bomb, even though our own intelligence said that they weren't.
You know why?
Why?
Epstein files. It's all a big distraction.
Dude, it makes me wonder sometimes, we haven't seen those things. Does make me wonder.
Okay.
You got some more? Because I'm gonna bring teammates. He's been too quiet here.
I want to hear.
There's so
I
much
want to
unpack.
hear Tom's piece of this because.
Can we even talk about this? We haven't been there yet. I'm being right on the border, though.
That dude needs to be in there.
Yes. I've been around Iranians because the part of Iraq I was in, Basra, it's Shia Muslims, right?
Yeah, the South.
So
yeah.
in fact, that's who was rocketing us all the time was Shias because we're in their tribal lands.
In
Sorry,
virtually every one of our articles on Iran, we encourage folks to watch a travel video because it's not a third world country. The people that live there are a wonderful ancient culture, and they deserve to be respected and protected. If you look at what happened to Libya, Afghanistan, Iraq, all of these places, it's awful what we've done to the local communities and ancient cultures, and I don't want to see that happen again. Okay, but let's keep going here just on this article and some of Jesse's arguments here.
Look at
because
this guy over here. He's an Iranian puppet. Iranian puppet right there.
Yeah, for sure. I'm getting a paycheck from Qatar, even though are they at odds now, or are they in good shape? I don't know. But I think that it's important for MAGA to have this discussion because we need to stay unified and dissect these facts. But so I don't think the regime change here is about nuclear weapons. Bibi wants a regime change for Greater Israel, for the Belt and Road Initiative, and so that they can assert their dominance in the region. That's what this regime change is all about. I don't think the war is going to stop with this ceasefire. Israel and the powers that be have been wanting regime change in Iran for 100 years, a millennia, 2 millennia. I mean, if you think about the history between the Jewish people and the Persian people, it goes back a long, long way. But so I think that there is a lot to unpack on whether or not Iran is an imminent threat to the United States or even to Israel.
Do you think anyone really buys that though? Do you believe people buy that?
What?
That Iran is an immediate threat to America?
No, they're an immediate threat to Israel.
Okay, so you at least agree with us, and this is a lot of our hesitation, is that there's just absolutely no belief that they can hit us.
If there was any country that had nuclear weapons that was threatening to use them against any other country, I would be against that.
Okay. Right. Including the U.S. against Iran.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So Iran doesn't want to bomb Israel because Iran thinks Israel is Palestine and they want to protect Palestine.
It's a fair point.
They're not going to be bombing Jerusalem, and they don't have a tactical nuke that could take out Tel Aviv. They have crudely developed uranium, and that would be sufficient to drop in a huge bomb via an airplane. They don't have ICBMs sufficient to hit us or Israel.
Or Qatar without being taken out by defense systems.
I mean, just think about that. The base in Qatar that they attacked is called Al Udeid.
I don't remember. I've been there, actually.
All you died. All you died. No one died, right? I mean, the irony there, all you died and no one died. If Iran really wanted to pick a fight with Israel and destroy Israel, they could right now. If their stated mission was death to all of the Israelis, they could accomplish that right now with the missile batteries that they have on hand. Mm-hmm. They're not going to do that. They don't want to see all Jews in Israel die. They don't want to see that. They want to see an end to the oppressive and colonial Zionist regime that is maintaining an apartheid state and exercising genocide in front of our eyes. They want to see that stop. They had an Iranian Zionist regime under the Shah, which they ousted. I don't like what happened afterwards, but that's not my deal. I'm not going to move to Afghanistan and tell the Taliban how to live.
But I will judge them for sure.
Yeah. But when these things happen, when we have this ideology for regime change, and it is so obvious in our foreign policy, I think that it's going to be eventually we are going to be drawn back into this quagmire with Iran one way or the other. I think Trump, as much as he is a nationalist and does probably want to stay out of this, I think he's going to be beholden to the powers that be in the same way that every president before him was.
Okay, but this is what gives me hope is that he's probably the least likely to go. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think that, one thing that is probably irritating, another reason why he's maybe going after the Tucker Carlsons and the Thomas Masseys and whatnot, is he's being told, don't go to war with Iran. And he's thinking, I already know that. He's being treated like he's stupid. He's being treated like he's some neocon Dick Cheney when he's thinking that's not my goal. So he kind of makes examples of these people because, they're trying to undermine him.
Do you think that their nuclear weapons program was actually destroyed with those couple bombs?
I mean, I know that Iran is trying to claim otherwise because it's to their benefit to try to act stronger than they actually are. I tend to believe that the majority of what was
at those sites,
the majority of those sites contain the majority of what they had going on. So I'm sure they still have some things. Of course.
That I don't think that they did a sufficient blow to the nuclear weapons program per their stated goals. I don't want them to take it out at all, but I don't think that they destroyed it in any meaningful capacity. So that then begs the question: what's going to happen next if their nuke program isn't honestly destroyed?
Right.
So that's where I don't think that this is over, unfortunately. I would love a ceasefire. The stock market goes up. My stress level's low. I don't have to doom scroll all night. But I don't think that's the case.
I think there could have been a secret deal between the U.S. and them to let them evacuate some of the uranium. Because, and I'm not just saying that because it sounds good to me, but the U.S. has been making secret deals with them for decades. And in this country, and this is one of the things I was maybe going to talk about, I don't know a lot about the Iranian hostage situation. I have a video I can share going in front of the embassy and stuff. But, you know, there's this whole thing where the Persian people say that the average American has no idea that there was a secret deal. What was it? However many days they made a deal to hold the hostages just to let, I believe, Carter, his term expire. Because it was the Reagan and all his crew, the Reagan administration or the people surrounding him that were already in communication at that time. And so, I mean, you look at being involved behind the scenes, Trump admitting, like you brought up earlier, that what was it? What was the year where they shot 6 missiles or whatever? And Trump, I don't know, it was disadvantageous for him to tell the news, in my opinion, that he made a deal with Iran during his
I don't know if
first
people
term.
know this. This was
go ahead, because I mean, to me,
Bartiromo.
that's what I think could have happened again. And if it happens over and over, why would it not be crazy right now to think that even 63 days ago he made a deal and he said, let the 60 days expire. It puts maximum nonviolent pressure on Israel, and then we're going to exchange blows, but I'll let you take 60 days to do whatever you want. And we won't kill any, you know, you don't kill any Americans, we won't kill any, or minimal Iranians. So
Yeah, no Iranians were killed during that strike, and yeah, to your point too, there was no radiation leaks that were caused from the bombings either. So
I think everyone's
could be
saving
the material was
face,
taken out.
kicking the can. I mean, seriously, like kicking the can, especially when you only have 4 years, it's probably in his, you know, it's probably advantageous to kick the can. I mean, I think that politics a lot of times is just kicking the can and punting and remaining in the same spot you were before.
Right.
You know, it's interesting when I YouTube it. It's not just like easily to be found here. I see the whole interview.
When the strikes happen, is it U.S. intelligence that would then know and figure out whether or not the nuclear program has been like?
Well,
hit
that's the
correctly?
problem is you wouldn't know unless you have boots on the ground or intelligence on the ground.
Well, and why I'm curious about it is because, like, a couple weeks ago, U.S. intelligence was saying there is no nuclear capabilities at all.
I think we have to be a little cautious on what the intelligence was saying. They did have enriched uranium. I don't think anyone's denying that. In fact, they had enriched it to 60% beyond medical use, beyond energy use. Now, everyone could understand that Iran is playing a card that's dealt to them. Okay, so you could understand why they would do that. Just enriching uranium doesn't mean that it goes in a bomb and it's successful. And from my understanding of nuclear bombs, they had no plutonium. They were not enriching plutonium or whatever you call that process, which would be the big bomb. Okay.
Right.
So they weren't any. So the intelligence was that the nuclear bomb program wasn't together, but they were enriching uranium. Okay. As obvious, most people would understand as a move in the direction of a nuclear bomb eventually. But there's a lot more that has to come together to get that done. And they just don't seem to be doing that. At least that was our intelligence. Until Benjamin Netanyahu was saying something completely different. And they're already at war with them. And there's strikes back and forth between these two. And it just seems, and this is what Tucker Carlson's interview was, that AIPAC, which seems to be lobbying on behalf of a foreign country, has basically every politician by the balls in America, except for a couple, well, some on the left and some warriors on the right. Maybe one warrior on the right. I can't even remember how many are on the right. Not a lot. I'm guessing Rand Paul doesn't get
Rand as well, right?
Okay. So that's the problem that we have here. All right, sorry.
No,
I want to hear more from
the
you.
story of so JFK did a lot of the same stuff against Israel to try to prevent. I mean, he didn't threaten violence, but there was a big thing. I was actually just reading about it last night to kind of refresh my memory on some of the stuff. It's been 12 years, and so JFK and a lot of the U.S. population was begging Israel to not develop nuclear weapons. And I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but they still don't say if they have them or not. The world
don't. No,
accepts that they for sure are a nuclear state. But JFK, we were going to send in inspectors or IEA or whatever the international stuff was. Israel said no. There was a big arguing. So then Israel set up a fake demonstration.
Yep.
Then they went through this charade, and then it took 10 or 20 years, and a guy who left Israel, who was like a nuclear scientist.
Mordecai Vanunu.
All right, so he could tell a story better than me, but broke the news in, I think, the UK.
Yep.
And so the Mossad set up a honeypot operation.
With Robert Maxwell.
Ooh.
Ghislaine Maxwell's father.
To go to Rome, Italy to meet a woman, and they nabbed him and took him back to Israel and threw him in prison.
Yep. Yeah.
So it's this dirty. I mean, this goes back to JFK. So to me, it's like the same playbook, and that's why, I'm afraid of war. And dude, I didn't even want us to do those strikes, but I think it might be a big charade, honestly.
It does seem that way. All right,
Jesse, what are your thoughts?
hold on. Hey,
Oh, sorry, your show, sir.
my God, he's trying to hijack my show. As someone who's been Tehran, sorry, I'll let you get into it, but I want to bring in your opinion on this. If we went through the last 48 hours, the things that were said, the Mark Levins, the Sean Hannitys of the world, and then the people that seem to be understanding the situation from the way we understand it, things that were said, it'd be really interesting to put it all out there and then see how accurate people have been. It started, and I like how you say this, Jesse, that it's strictly the nuclear program, but that's not what people were saying in the universe. They were literally saying they all chant death to America.
Yeah.
And this is how I saw it, the banging those drums to regime change, which is a scary word these days because we see how well that goes for America. How do you take that down? The neocon old, saying that they scream death to America.
Well, and they do, but when I was there,
who's they, first of all?
Well, I guess it's what we'd call the hardliners, and they're not a two-party system over there. And there's definitely, I don't know how many parties or whatever, but the religious leadership is over the political leadership, so they kind of have the ultimate umbrella.
Right, it's a theocracy.
When they do the Friday prayers, the Tuesday meetings, whatever, they'll chant death to America. The whole parliament will do it.
Death to Israel, death to America.
And as far as when I was there, I mean, the average person is embarrassed by that. And I hate to speak. I mean, Iran's only 65 or something % Persian. I mean, it's a complex country, many cultures. Just like the U.S., the people in the urban areas are vastly different than the rural people. Way more tolerant, believe it or not. And Tehran's super tolerant city for all things considered.
Yeah.
But the art that they have the Down with America art. It's there, but people are embarrassed and they want the regime to take it down, and they've always wanted the regime to take it down. When the 79 revolution happened, just like a lot of revolutions, you have an underground network to this day of people who long. I think Patrick Bet-David talks about it. I mean, they long for the days of the Shah.
Right.
So the average person romanticizes, sort of like our intro, they romanticize how Western it was under the Shah, and all that's true, but the Shah took care of people he didn't like too, right? I mean, he took them out. So it's from bad to worse, that from 53 to 79 bad, 79 later worse. And so when you're over there, people are actually not figuratively, literally crying to meet an American. I've met people and they're tearing up because their parents or grandparents have stories about when we used to go to California or we did business with this Western country, and we from 53 to 79, it was just different. And so they lost a lot of people in the Iran-Iraq war. They still have those. That's kind of like their World War II. That's their recent memory, defines them. And they have these stories. And so to meet an American it's just like winning the Powerball or something. I mean, maybe not that vast, but it was emotional every 20 minutes I met somebody. Walking down the street and they're like emotional.
And you weren't at all like hiding the fact you were an American.
No, because I was in a group of like 10 people and there were actually like 3 other Americans.
And you were walking around Tehran, so the capital city.
Yeah.
And you went other places. Dawson, pull up the A7, and this is another thing I want to push back on you a little bit, Jesse. I think, just click on that. This is just Bloomberg. It's kind of hard for me to find the truth, but I think all you guys know this is an actual truth from Donald Trump, and this was on June 16th. Iran should have signed the deal I told them to sign. What a shame and waste of human life. Simply stated, Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. I said it over and over again. Everyone should immediately evacuate Tehran. Well, why, if it's just focused on the nuclear sites, why are people evacuating Tehran? And I believe, and I'm sure these were accurate videos, the chaos of people leaving Iran. It doesn't seem to me that our beef should at all be with the average Joe, which, by the way, I think is a very young population, right? I think half the population is like 30 or under. It's a very young population, or 40 or under, something like that. It's the hardliners. No one's going to argue for Ayatollah in this room. I mean, I think theocracies in general are a bad thing. I certainly think Muslim theocracies are a bad thing. But the people of Iran give me a little bit of hope. I mean, not just from what I've seen personally, but from what you talk about going over there.
I've been to Iraqi Kurdistan. I mean, you were in southern Iraq, but the Kurds were our allies. And when I was up there, my guide was one of the coolest people ever in Iraqi Kurdistan.
Right.
Still keep in touch with them a little bit. They love Americans up there. It's not even close to what Persians and Iranians feel for America. There's another level. Maybe 20 countries I visited. There's nothing that has ever come close. Not even the Kurds.
So the Iranian people love us. Is that what you're saying? Like the average
oh
American.
my God.
Right.
And and it is kind of funny because they are in the middle of the Silk Road, Iraq too, right? But
Belt and Road Initiative, which is another reason why they must be toppled. I mean, you can look into that, but that's Israel and China are trying to create the Belt and Road Initiative, which would travel past the new Silk Road, or the old Silk Road. So that's another stated reason why folks think that the regime change is going to happen. But please continue.
Yeah, the people in Iran, I mean, I think they're in a unique position too because they absolutely are not Arab. Like Arab is a minority there. Iraq's pretty diverse. I was in the north when I visited, so Kurds, not Arab, but Persia, I mean, super old empire, 500 BC, and being in the middle of the Silk Road, I think that kind of is why their hospitality is what it is. I mean, some of the buildings we got to see, some were converted to hotels, and they're 500,000-year-old kind of caravan buildings, giant courtyards, because they would have them in every major city for safekeeping, for caravans coming through. So, I mean, hospitality, like even if it's your enemy's family comes to your town, if you're the top dog, like you're going to put them in your house. And so people from the ice cream man to, and I can tell you stories about, we weren't supposed to take pictures or talk with military. That's like forbidden. And every corner there's a, guy in fatigues with an AK generally, or every other corner. Yeah. And so many of them were begging to be in photos with us. And so it's like, talk about the cognitive dissonance as an American. I'm trying not to break any rules. And they're like, let's take a photo. Your government told me not to. But there were guys in the military active that were like, I wish I could take you to my house, meet my wife. Everyone asks you to spend the night. That's like saying, like, you're my boy,
Yeah, right.
Spend the night. So every time you make a purchase, anything, they go, I wish you could come spend the night. It's really weird.
Or don't they also say like it's free? Like it's they say like it's just a hospitality thing. Like, oh, how much is it? And they're like, it's free. And
you have to refuse 3 times. It's like an art. So they'll try to give you it 3 times, and then they'll take your money.
Yeah.
So it's in every, like I bought a suit there. Anytime you're going to buy something, they'll kind of pause you. Maybe if they have a kid, they'll send the kid to talk to you, and they'll run to the back to get the tea, because it's really like kind of sacrilege to not offer you tea and sit down, and everything's very relaxed too. So I actually kind of can feel it right now. I haven't talked about it in a while, but it's like you walk around there and you just feel like if you needed something, somebody would take care of you. And people would always ask me about like the safety aspect, and we got a little safety briefing from my guide when I went there. And it's so funny because he's like, don't get any vehicles and don't follow anyone. Like, don't, if someone says like, go up these stairs, he's like, other than that, you're going to be fine. Like, you're going to be absolutely fine. So you look into petty crime and stuff, and people have asked me about, were you scared? And I always say, if you just frame it like, if you want to travel to some of these places, when you wake up, can you go through like a week in Minneapolis or whatever without committing a serious crime? And if you can't do that, if you're a criminal in Minnesota, don't go to those places. If you can wake up and go through a week and you just go, I'm just not committing crimes, go to those places. Just don't commit a crime, and you're going to be totally fine.
And of course, petty crime is something that would be any travel. I think more importantly is Iran, despite being run by, these fanatics, essentially religious fanatics who do actually hate America and do hate Israel. The people are different from that. There was an infamous wrestler, I can't think of the name right now. He was an Olympic wrestler that was put to death a couple years ago by the Ayatollah for speaking out against the regime. My hope is that we can do that. I don't know if that's what Donald Trump's real intent of the regime change was, Jesse. That's the spin, certainly, because he did have a truth.
Again, wasn't regime change.
Well, but he said that. So the spin on it, can we find the truth, Dawson?
I don't know what you want me to look.
Just Google real quick. What did he say? Let's see what he said first.
One of the craziest things about
just look
Iran
up Trump and regime change
is that some of the, and I'm not a proponent of this at all. I think it's disgusting, but Iran is one of the highest populations of transvestites.
Yeah, and nose jobs.
And they're saying that there's a religious decree to protect transgender people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because they don't believe in homosexuality,
Yep.
right? So if someone's gay, they tell them to switch genders.
Right. That's
Yep.
wild.
Well, in a culture that has no alcohol, what else do you do? Oh, it hurts to laugh right now. I shouldn't do that.
That's funny.
Oh, man.
What are we looking for?
I got the sickness from Gunnar, apparently. He
Here's
had it
the
just
top
before
one.
me.
Trump rejects Iranian regime change.
CBS.
I want to find his truth post. Does it have his truth post somewhere? Just look up truth post. So we can see exactly what he said. Because this is what critics are pointing to, that Trump said this. Let's see here. I wish you would just be on Twitter more.
was
Would the headline have it?
I was scrolling through his truth a little bit ago.
Here we go.
I don't know if this is the one. This is the one that he calls.
Well, click
it a
on
war.
Donald Trump and let's see if we can look at some of his other ones.
Oh gosh.
Oh my God! Did you guys see what Fox News is the coverage after his F-bomb this morning? Oh my God! I can't wait to show you this. He does it too quickly. You know what I'm talking about, right? He does allude to regime change at some point.
Yeah,
Jesse.
there is a truth or whatever where he said maybe we do want regime change. MAGA.
Oh, yes.
Oh,
he said
yeah, yeah.
MAGA
Saw that,
in there.
Yes, he literally says MAGA.
Yeah, I had
Make
to read
Iran
it, right.
great again.
They need to be made great again.
That's not very America first, is it?
Right. Well, that's true. But
well, it's up to their people to do that. but-
the spin is that he's referring to the people taking over Iran, which, by the way, I think most of us praise and want that to happen. I want peace to come from those people. I want them to have freedom. No, he posts way too much. Don't worry about it. Jeez.
But,
Jeez.
yeah, I mean, for those who want to
Worse than
look,
Walter.
you can check out that MAGA one.
Hold on, I gotta show you guys this. You'll crack up. Okay, so this is Fox News' coverage. Oh my God, I can't wait to show you this. Actually, Dawson, just if you go to the A2, you'll go back to my Twitter account. I posted it right after the A2. I don't have it in the sheet. All right, you'll see it. It's without missing a beat. Bernie Sanders on Rogan, right here. Okay, watch Fox News' coverage, guys. Get your headphones on.
So the President of the United States, obviously very direct. He's disappointed that the ceasefire was breached. And it was, as far as I could tell, the ceasefire was breached by the Iranians. And what the Israel did was within their rights. They had 12 hours before it ended. They got some targets to finish up.
Leave it to Fox News. Israel couldn't do any wrong. So apparently on the media scrum on Air Force One, which seems like cooler heads prevailed, and mostly credit to Trump on that one, because he said he literally called Benjamin Netanyahu and said that they turned the plane around, but that the so-called ceasefire allowed Israel to attack Iran for another 12 hours, and then both had to have it cool.
Right.
I was like, what kind of ridiculous ceasefire is that? Oh, we're going to do nothing as you attack us. So obviously Iran's going to retaliate against that. And Trump lost his cool, rightfully so. We got him in the swear jar today, but lost his cool because it's like, and he says this, he's like, what country, what people would, what kind of decision is that? At the first hour of a ceasefire is to send the most bombs, right? To do that, to do the largest attack. So, but it's so funny to me. They can't even say that on Fox News. They have to skirt around it. Oh, it couldn't be Israel that's doing it.
Kudos to Fox News, though. There was a segment covering a protest in Iran, and as we know, the chant "Death to America." The way that folks understand that, of course, is ending the Zionist-occupied government of the United States. But then also, the native population, the people of Iran, do not like that chant. So it's down with the United States. So you see them holding signs that read "down to the U.S." Okay, and Fox News also had that embedded in their video, and it was titled "Down with the United States." So I was kind of pleased to see them toning down the rhetoric on that piece.
Yeah, it's rare.
Jesse,
rare
I
for
gotta
them.
ask you. So Israel is not a signatory to the non-proliferation treaty. What are your thoughts on that? You know what I mean? So we have Iran with a secret nuclear weapons program. I don't think anyone really doubts why North Korea or other countries might want to develop a nuke. I can see that existential threat with Iran. I don't want anyone to have a nuke. I'm bummed that we used our nukes against Japan. But so what are your thoughts on Israel having a bomb?
Yeah, I also got a problem with it, and you're right that just like Iran, they're also lying and saying that they don't, and it's been a covert thing that they've done for decades upon decades. Yeah, so I think it's also an equal problem because Israel has also proven that they are not even-handed, that they are willing to go above and beyond, that they're willing to go to extreme lengths when it comes to war. So I also see Israel as not a good, that nuclear weapons are not in good hands under the control of Israel. So, yeah, my point generally is that nuclear weapons are wrong. We don't want them in the hands of anyone. Denuclearization is a good thing. The movement towards that in Iran, because of Trump's bombings, I think are a good thing. And I'd like to see the same things go on within these other countries as well. It'd be ideal for these things to go down peacefully, for the countries to to cooperate and get rid of their nuclear weapons themselves. With international oversight. So, yeah, in general, I'd say yes. It'd be a problem for Israel to have these nuclear weapons, and I'd like to see the denuclearization of Israel.
Right. How did they?
And maybe that could be the peace agreement. Is Iran and Israel coming to terms saying neither of them can have nukes?
So, do you know the story of how their program was developed and where they got the material? Okay. So. Israel stole nuclear weapons from the United States and from Russia. They used our material. There is a fake company called NUMEC. I think it was in Pennsylvania. Ryan Dawson has a wonderful documentary on this. But so there was a fake shell company called NUMEC that was able to buy uranium as a byproduct. And then they were going to be manufacturing some piece or storing it somehow. I forget what their front reason for accumulating this material was, but they sent it to Israel. And then they developed it at Dimona, like you said, Tom, earlier. When the United States sent weapons inspectors to Dimona, they only showed us the first few floors. It was buried deep underground. They created a false floor and said, no, it doesn't go down any further. And that's where the real business was occurring. Arnon Milchan, who produced Fight Club, stole Krytron triggers from the United States on his private jet and flew them to Israel. And so with the weapons material that they've accumulated from the United States and from Russia, they have this doctrine, Seymour Hersh wrote about it, called the Samson option, okay? Google it. It's horrifying. But effectively what it is Israel using their secret nuclear weapon arsenal as a knife to the world's throat. And if anything happens to Israel, the dead hand algorithm will launch and we're all toast. So does that inform Trump's worldview? Does that inform his actions?
Yeah, it should too. And, I think that, since it's labeled and whatnot, I'd imagine that even Iran has that sort of Samson option like you're talking about as well, just on the side of radical Islam.
Right.
So, like I was saying earlier, it's a problem either which way for either of these countries to have nuclear weapons because they're both proven to be emotional and, that they're willing to make harsh decisions quickly. So,
if Trump can do in Israel and Iran what he did in India and Pakistan, I would be very pleased.
Yep.
I think, again, this is Trump caught in a spider web where he can only do so much. And if he doesn't act accordingly, I think his life is on the line. And that's where I think this gets really tricky really quickly. But I want to talk more about Iran. Tom, did you bring any pictures or anything?
Yeah, there's some. I mean, we can
Awesome.
go through
Yeah,
some
I
of
think
them.
because I think it's important. Like, I just want to show folks what the everyday life is like in Iran, and to demonstrate like we should not be blowing them to smithereens. We should not be attributing the worst ideologies to the average person around the world. And so I think most people are just like us. They want to live their lives.
One way, or maybe the main way that changed the way I thought after I came back from Iran was, you know, it made me realize how hard it is to be the center of the world. You know, whatever we are, 4% of the population or 3, or I don't know. But we export more culture in the last 50, 100 years right, than anybody. We all agree on that, right? To be able to meet other cultures that have zero problem differentiating every other government and every other government's people. Like, they look at the U.S., probably a 10-year-old could in Iran. Like, they have no problem doing it, and I experienced it in other places. So when I left, I was like, how shrouded has my brain been my whole life? Because, yeah, I thought going there, yeah, it's a government, most people don't like it, but to, like, experience that and what that feels like in a country, and how maybe every other country, maybe ourselves, but maybe every other country in the world has this element of the people being pigeonholed, being kind of like playing a charade. You know, not everyone's North Korea, fake crying and stuff, but we all kind of have certain things we can and can't say. And to see that magnified, and then to see people smile more than here and all this stuff, and you're like, how can you even do that? And so my guide, he must have been in his 70s, and he fought against Saddam Hussein. He was in the Air Force, or he did like the electrical components on helicopters or something. And to have guys that died from funding that my parents' tax money paid for, totally like, hey, let bygones be bygones, you know?
Well, I mean,
and it's
geez, think about Japan.
Yeah.
You know, I've traveled Japan. I don't know if you have.
No.
The nicest people on the planet. I am. It's unbelievable how nice Japanese people are and how much they love us. And we dropped the big bombs on them. The only nuclear bombs to ever be dropped on a civilization, and it was them, and they love us.
Yeah.
So it's crazy when you think about that. I mean, Iran pales in comparison to that.
Exactly. So there's a picture. I don't know if you can find it because there's a few blue buildings. There's probably a dozen pictures, but I don't even remember the name of the mosque. It's one of the top 4 in Tehran, and it's probably the most beautiful picture. It's not that gorgeous one. That one's in Shiraz, I think.
Architecture and art and
they
poetry.
They can't use any like animals or people or anything. So their Marab designs, all the squiggly lines, they've kind of mastered the squiggly lines as to not offend God. That one. So that's one of my favorite pictures. And what's really weird about this, not just how beautiful it is, and it's wedged right in a very urban area of Tehran, but I was taken off guard because we're looking at this and whatever. We get right up close, and if you look, you don't have to zoom in or anything, but in the very bottom, there's like a concrete rectangle, and there's some headstones on it. That was only a year old. Do you remember the nuclear scientists around 2010? They just killed one that they injured in 2010. They just killed him a couple weeks ago. So this is really weird timing. But I'm walking around with my guide and a couple other people, and we go up there, and he goes, yeah, you may have heard of this in the news, whatever. These were this guy, this guy, this guy. This is the memorial to the assassinated nuclear scientists. Because I was there in, 2013, so they got killed 3 years before. So you're standing there, and some people are paying respects, and I just got the weirdest feeling. Because you're like, oh, yeah, no one really knows. But everyone there thinks it's America and or Mossad that did it. And so these guys were driving from their universities, motorcycle pulled up and slapped C4 on the car and dipped out an alley, and they had a remote control detonator and blew up the guys. Well, one of them lived, until a couple weeks ago, and then Israel took him out, I think 2 weeks ago. But to stand there and to kind of see like the grave firsthand of the stuff I've been seeing in the news while I wasn't expecting it. And then, no one treated me any different. And right at the spot, I was talking to people. I'm from America. Just treated me like so beautifully, but super, super weird. So that picture, that was a good one that I had, I guess, because it's so beautiful. Like, to mix the violence and the sadness with some of the prettiest stuff you've ever seen.
I want to say it was Tucker Carlson that put this out. It was like a montage of Bibi Netanyahu's. They're on the cusp of getting nuclear bombs.
That's linked in my article.
Is it?
Yeah.
Let's watch this real quick, Because I think there was
It's over
two
20 years, right?
Yeah, there was 2 statements in 2012 alone, which is interesting because you were there a year later. You have his article? Where is this here?
I don't know.
Gunnar, where's the link in this article?
I'm trying to figure out.
Is this the same picture that I was using for the first thumbnail?
Yeah, Dawson tried putting that on our promotional thing. I go, that's an Iraqi flag.
Oh, okay. It's right after the. Scroll down a little bit.
Did you know that? Did you mean to put an Iraq flag in your?
But it looks awesome. Okay, so scroll down.
This is a pretty cool looking photo. Almost looks like L.A. with the Mexican
okay, right
flag.
in the middle there.
This one.
Go ahead, play it.
You've probably heard this line before.
Iran has never given up its quest for nuclear weapons and the missiles to deliver them.
That's because Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin
This was my
Netanyahu
favorite.
has been saying
Oh
this
my
for
God,
more than
look at all the
30
CDs.
years,
I laughed
claiming
so hard when he
Iran
did
is
that.
close to having
Nuclear weapons. Nuclear weapons. Nuclear weapons. Atomic bombs.
In 1992, as a member of parliament, Netanyahu addresses the Knesset. He says, within 3 to 5 years, we can assume that Iran will become autonomous in its ability to develop and produce a nuclear bomb. 3 years later, in his book Fighting Terrorism, he repeats the same time frame, 3 to 5 years.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Fast forward to 2002. Netanyahu testifies before a U.S. Congressional committee actively calling for the invasion of Iraq.
Are there any other nations that you would recommend that the United States launch preemptive attacks upon at this point?
The 2 nations that are vying, competing with each other, who will be the first to achieve nuclear weapons, is Iraq and Iran.
The invasion happens months later. No weapons of mass destruction are found in Iraq.
The staged photo.
This is a fragment of a 2009 U.S. State Department cable released by WikiLeaks. Netanyahu tells members of Congress that Iran is 1 or 2 years away from being capable of developing nuclear weapons.
They're online.
It's 2012,
This is the
and
one I was
Netanyahu
referred
is
to.
holding up
Yeah,
his
this is the
infamous
cartoon
cartoon
bomb.
bomb at the UN General
There you go.
Assembly.
By next spring, at most, by next summer, at current enrichment rates, they will have finished the medium enrichment and move on to the final stage. From there, it's only a few months, possibly a few weeks, before they get enough enriched uranium for the first bomb.
And now, 33 years after Netanyahu's first so-called imminent warning, Israel attacks Iran.
And if not stopped, Iran could produce a nuclear weapon in a very short time. It could be a year, it could be within a few months, less than a year.
That's
All right,
despite
let's
the
stop.
U.S.
So, you know, Jesse, this is where I come to and why I said the things I said in the last 72 hours. I'm just sick of the lies. These guys have been lying for years.
Yeah.
It brought us into
Well,
big
no, a lot of that
warfare.
was exaggeration there, but I mean,
Yeah.
it was true that Iran has been developing a nuclear weapon since 1989.
And it's also true he uses the propaganda. They're on the cusp of it as a reason to attack. I mean, even in 2002, he's saying, yeah, you should probably go into Iran as well. Like, let's do that. That makes a lot of sense. And, oh, by the way, we didn't go in Iran, thankfully. We just went to Iraq and installed an Iranian government in Iraq, which then that fell to pieces. And what do we have now, folks? See what's behind door number 2. You know, the official recognized government in Syria right now is Al-Qaeda?
Yeah.
Right.
That's insane.
Right.
Like, last I checked, I hate Al-Qaeda.
Right.
Like they were the ones that literally attacked us.
If you think about all the countries in which regime change worked, I can't really think of any. I mean, think about North Korea. Think about what happened to Afghanistan.
Which has a nuclear bomb.
I mean, Iraq right now. I mean, part of why did we kill Soleimani? Because he was there working in concert with Iraq to establish a product of defense. You know, they wanted to have a treaty for defense. And the United States was being ousted at that time. The Iraqi parliament voted to remove all U.S. air bases. We're still there, right? So our ability to conduct regime change only results in a further, more extreme government. What we should do is the Trump model, I think, which is free trade and back off. Like the China model, like just trade, and that's it. and people will begin to become educated and modern on their own.
We were looking for that Truth Social post, and I did end up finding it. That's the one.
So it's not politically correct to use the term regime change, but if the current Iranian regime is unable to make Iran great again, why wouldn't there be a regime change? MAGA. But this is what the spin is that he's referring to the people there, and is that fair, Jesse, on that?
It seems as if he's talking about the people.
Yeah, I think, okay, so before we sign off today, and Tushi's saying he's got some juicy gossip for a post show. So I guess we'll do a post show briefly on the link on locals. We're not going to be on YouTube. We'll explain to you guys if you're a premium subscriber. If you're not, sign up and go to truthhurtsnews.com and click on support us, or if you're on Rumble, click on join us so you can be part of our post show. Coming out with what I feel, and when you see the comment section, not way different than what a lot of people are talking about here. A position where I just don't want us to engage in war and get us involved in another war. Boy, the level of attacks against me are so insane, which I'm not trying to play victim here. I brush them off, and half the people I would just, I gave them the due that they deserve. Like one person goes, geez, Jake, looks like you've been getting paid. I go, yeah, it's the government of Qatar that's been paying me, and the payments come regular. It's like such a ridiculous thing. I was accused of being a Democrat. Like, oh, he's such a liberal. It's like, no, the Democrats are wrong on all this stuff, too. They have no moral authority at all. In fact, when the Democrat Party in Minnesota made a statement, I tweeted back at him, I'm like, you guys are ridiculous. You've been funding a proxy war against Russia, the number one holder of nuclear bombs. They have more stockpile than the United States. You have no moral authority to talk about this issue. So obviously, I am very much opposed to the Democrats as well in this thing.
Right. The Democrats are bringing up the Constitution as if they believe in the Constitution.
They don't. And, Obama struck Syria.
They just want their meaty paws and to be able to, decide whether or not Trump has the authority to do anything. I'm leaning more and more towards executive authority over legislative authority because we look at the Congress and these people are a bunch of jokers. But one question I want to ask the three of you is, do you think Iran should be allowed to have a nuclear weapon?
But you keep saying allowed. What does that mean?
By your measure.
No, but there's no one that allows or disallows.
So
it's how
that sounds like a yes.
Well,
there's
the framing of the question is the story within itself.
Correct. Yeah.
Because here's the thing. So technology is always advancing, right? So this is pre-crime. This is basically classic pre-crime. If nuclear weapons gets half the size every 10 years, and pretty soon a nuclear weapon is the size of your iPhone and it's undetectable, imagine how ridiculous the argument would be that we're going to tell a sovereign peoples what they're allowed to have technologically or not. And it's going to get to that point where they're smaller, they're undetectable, and imagine how suicidal of a foreign policy it would be to say, we're going to go around the world and we're going to inspect it, and if we think that you have something, we're going to kill people or at least destroy what you have. It's pre-crime. It's never ending.
Yeah, well, are you saying by allow that America can't let them have it? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, we're the leader of the world. Who else is going to choose?
Because I've never signed up to be the leader of the world. I would love to be the leader of the world in GDP and the leader of the world in trade and the leader of the world in freedom, which seems like those things are not becoming the thing anymore, although Trump gives us a little bit more hope on that. But, boy, we were losing a lot in freedom category. So I would love to be the leader of the world in that. I don't want to be the policeman of the world. Not at all. Not one bit. Now, do I want Iran to have a nuclear bomb? Not more than I want any other bad regime to have a nuclear bomb, or any other nation for what it's worth. A lot of nations do have nuclear bombs. Was it like a dozen or so?
Yeah, I think there's 7 or 9. I forget.
I thought it was like 10 or 12, but whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, including Pakistan, including North Korea.
Yeah,
so
North
we don't
Korea's
like all the countries that have nuclear bombs.
Yeah.
So no, I don't want them to have a nuclear bomb. But to say no, we can't allow it's like, well, what does that mean then? We will attack a country. We will invade a country to stop a nuclear development.
We'll do what Trump just did. We'll bomb the nuclear facilities.
Assuming that works, though, we don't know if that will work.
It just did.
We don't know that. How do we know that? We don't have boots on the ground.
Because Iran did not retaliate in an equal manner.
We probably on a smart point. If they were, listen, just from a rational standpoint, if Iran,
we got the better deal of
Hold on, Jesse. If Iran really wanted to continue developing a nuclear program, okay, assuming that that's what they were doing at that point, they're certainly rich in uranium. If they wanted to do that, wouldn't you just do a stupid retaliation and give in to this and then continue to build this thing in secrecy or under the ground?
Sure, we set them back. It's going to be a continual problem, I imagine. But
well, that does seem to be the good part of Trump's policy, is it probably did set him back, but it didn't stop him.
I don't know if it set him back.
We don't know.
I don't know if it set him back.
No one can claim that they can. I mean, the military could, assuming that the military is being honest with you. And listen, I'm a guy, I'm very pro-military. I was in the military, but let's be honest, the Pentagon lies to us. In fact, the Pentagon doesn't only lie to us. You know who the Pentagon lies to? Donald Trump.
Right.
They told him that there was less soldiers in Syria than there actually were. They lied to Donald Trump himself.
Right.
Like, the Pentagon's not some
Let me
authority.
change the question then, okay? So let's say you're president. Iran is developing a nuclear weapon. What do you do?
Yes. Negotiations with Iran over and over again. And by the way, from what I understand,
even through negotiations, they're still developing the nuclear weapon. They're still a threat to the United States, and they still.
I don't believe that. No, you just told me you didn't believe that they were a threat to the United States.
No, I'm saying, well, not a nuclear threat to the United States.
What kind of threat were they to the United States?
Well, they could obviously do all kinds of things. You know,
to all of our bases over by them. Yes, of course.
Not even just that. That they could send people into our country. And
although it doesn't
things.
appear that they can. It doesn't even appear like they can get to us in Qatar. No, they cannot get to our shorelines, nor do I think they want to do that, right? Mm-hmm. Which that's the point that you make that's very good, is strength or peace through strength. I do think Donald Trump portrays that, right? But my concern is, at what cost do we stop them from becoming a nuclear
I'm just
power?
saying, once negotiations get to nothing, what do you do?
Well, from my understanding, hold on, my understanding, they were still abiding by the inspections of their program.
And they were negotiating. And we killed their negotiators.
My understanding is that they were still allowing inspectors
they were
in.
abiding by all inspections.
No, I don't think so at all.
There wasn't an indication that they weren't. I mean, the last inspection.
You guys are saying, you guys are also saying at the same time, we don't know where their materials were. Was it at the facilities? How could things be on the up and up? How could they be passing all of these inspections?
Are you familiar
if we don't know where all the equipment is?
Jesse, are you okay? Look up satellite footage of I think it's Fordo. Are you aware of the satellite footage? It shows about 16 trucks outside of, I think it was Fordo's site.
I don't know how to spell that.
Just look up
FORD.
Just look up trucks. Iranian trucks outside nuclear site. Satellite image. Because there was about 16. I think it was like 16 trucks outside.
We didn't meaningfully damage their nuclear program. We accelerated it. They're going to back out of the MPT and the IAEA because if they're if they're inviting folks in to monitor, if they're saying, yeah, come monitor our stuff, and then they're just going to use that as war plans, they're probably not going to continue allowing the inspections. And I mean, nobody here wants nuclear weapons, but we all understand why they would be pursuing them if we and Israel has been seething for regime change.
Scroll down, Dawson.
It's an existential threat. Mm-hmm. So I don't want them to have nuclear weapons. Nobody does. But whether or not they pursue them after we bomb them like this, I think there's a greater chance. So I think that we promote peace here, or did we kick the can down the road and just make the situation worse?
Okay, so
don't worry about Dustin. There is satellite images of trucks. It'll take us too long to
even the most fundamentalist Islamic, leaders are not irrational actors. In the West, these narratives often depend on you accepting up front that these are irrational actors.
Right.
They are not, and that's I think a crux or the crux of this whole thing. So say tomorrow Iran has a huge Austin Powers, rocket ready to launch, and it's got 10 of them, and then it's got 20 of them.
Yeah.
I mean, what are they going to do? I mean, the mutually assured destruction has been something we've been understanding as part of foreign policy for 70 years. So that's my point is I'm not as scared. I don't want Iran to have nuclear weapons, but I also I don't care, I think, more than the average person, because it would be so easy to destroy everybody in that government. And I think that what they just did potentially bought them more time and power, and maybe Trump, and maybe put pressure on Netanyahu. So I think that's the game we're looking at. And I think the fear-based, you turn on the TV, and it's like it's the bogeyman. They're going to come and nuke, Brainerd, Minnesota, like tomorrow.
Right.
And I think a lot of people
are buying into that.
They're saying, look how precise these strikes were.
Yeah.
We freaking rule. We took off from Missouri. There were people shooting off firecrackers or whatever, and eating a hot dog and drinking a Bud Light. And I just don't think it works like that. I think the same reason that North Korea is not really messing around.
Mutually assured destruction seems to be like the bread and butter of those like terroristic spots, though, right? Like you crash a plane into 2 buildings, and then like that's mutually assured destruction, but you got your message across. Is that past them? I don't think that it is.
Well, and on that point, on whether the Iranian Ayatollah could be irrational, he is 86. He's towards the end of his life. He could be seen as irrational, and same in the same breath that we were saying that Israel is not necessarily a trustworthy actor with nuclear weapons. But then again, irrational might not be the right word to use against Iran or against Israel in that case, because they would have their own rationale. But
out of curiosity, you say he's 86. At what age would you accuse someone of being
well, let me just say, he looks a lot older than Trump.
Okay, there you go.
And he's obviously aged a little bit tougher.
He wears less makeup, though.
Hey, Dawson, would you do me a favor? I sent you on Signal of Twitter. Would you pull that up?
Okay, be careful now. You're going to go extend because I got one other thing that's important.
It's just a like random collection.
You look the way you look suggests we are going down a big rabbit hole right now.
The way you look, you look like
my
you're
God,
scheming.
Is this how Israel killed JFK?
No.
Okay.
But I do think that's what happened.
I know you do.
But so this is just a video of nightlife in Iran. And I just want people to see that this isn't like, again, Afghanistan where there's the Taliban and all of the women are covered up. This looks fun. I would go.
You freaking Iranian puppet. Oh, my God.
I'd go
there.
Did
they pay you? Does Iran pay you?
No, I love God's people.
Now, this is actually interesting because it is law to have your head covered.
When I was there, it was you didn't see them removing it, the women.
Yeah,
but they would do this flirtatious thing where they would let it go just to the crown of their head, and it would slip down, and they'd grab it, and they'd do it over and over. So
how sure are we that this is Iran?
I'm pretty sure this is. It looks like.
I mean, it does look right. It does look like at least an Arab country. But it is
good
law.
point though. If it might not be, but seriously though, there's a lot of people.
Oh my
doing
God!
it now.
Wouldn't that be hilarious?
After that one,
if this is actually
a
Israel,
good chunk of those
they got you on this one. This
like
is
maybe
Israel.
not all of
they
those
got
are Iran, but a good chunk of them are.
You got suckered into it. This is
and
really
most
Israel.
of the travel videos that I've seen of Iran look just like this.
Well, no, I think a lot's correct, but I know that it is law there that women have to have their heads.
When I was there, actually, what I was told by the locals is because there's ski resorts really close to Tehran, because just north of it,
it's like a mile high,
huge mountain
elevation,
range,
isn't it?
So they said even the morality police, it's like an unwritten rule that they don't go on the ski hills.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's every single day, but that's what I heard is like when you go up there, even if it's really cold, the women just have their hair out, just blowing in the wind, because that was the one place when I was there that the morality police left them alone.
All right, Team Age, question for you. What is the population of Iran?
Oh, yeah, was it 92 or something? Yeah, I don't know. I probably wouldn't have known that, especially with all these bright lights. I'm on the spot.
All right. So, by the way, have you seen how much Ted Cruz is just like rambling nonstop on Twitter? It's so funny. He knows he got, and he can't help himself, and he has to keep going.
He tried to go after Tucker, saying that he wasn't pro-Trump enough, when Ted Cruz was the one who was refusing to endorse Trump at the 2016 RNC convention. So,
and even oh my God, it's like freaking Mark Levin. Wasn't Levin an anti-Trumper, never-Trumper? Is going after Steve Bannon, like the originator of MAGA? Like, this is the crazy world. Now, I want to say this. Despite some of the things directed at me on social media, I will forget and I will forgive, because I think the MAGA coalition is so important. If we could literally achieve
you were
peace.
Under the misassumption that Trump was going to cause a war.
He called it a war, by the way. Trump didn't.
Well, I'd call it the war for peace.
Sure,
I mean, it was a short military operation.
Yes, and I will stand by the fact he does not have constitutional authority.
It really
to do
doesn't
that.
meet the
Seems very clear to
definition
me.
of what a war is, of like I said earlier. So
that's fine, but he called it a war.
Yeah.
Well, like I said, what did he say exactly?
I can pull it up again.
Okay.
Give me a second.
To answer that, I see that Terry time question. Yeah, there were Zoroastrians, especially in the south in Shiraz. But I see the comment, so we spoke to.
When Iran, were you speaking with Zoroastrians or Muslims? Both.
Both, but you don't know, and I think that's late at night in Tehran. We'll tell it maybe in the after-hour show or whatever. But this one guy, it's kind of funny. Late at night, 11 at night in Tehran, and people really open up when you're on the street, no one's around, and
Yeah.
people were talking smack to me about the supreme leader, which what you're told here is if you speak out against him, I mean, it's a death sentence, but people couldn't wait to tell an American stranger that, hey, I don't like the holy man. That's, broken English, but he's a holy man, hat man. He's like,
right.
I'm like, well, I was told if you told me that, you're dead now. But it's like, it's cool that people trust you enough with that sentiment when you're there.
But they don't have free speech in that country. And the problem is, despite how tyrannical the Ayatollah might be, it just can't get to every level, and it's so widespread. And they also have a problem with their population. Even a tyrant has to deal with its population. Unless you're North Korean, you just live in a prison, and people fake cry out there. But I should have looked this up ahead of time. There was a wrestler. I can't think of the name right now, but infamously put to death. It got Dana White and many of the fighters in the UFC let this guy live. It might have been 4 years ago. It might have been even when Trump was in there. But so you can achieve a certain level where you can't talk out against our regime. God. I mean, it's leave it to Tehran to throw a fighter who speaks out against the power structure to be thrown in prison, because we would never do that here in America, would we? No.
Dick Cheney gunboat story. You ever heard of that one?
Well, I was more or less referencing Muhammad Ali, but yes, yes, definitely Dick Cheney.
You know that gunboat story where they were going to build like 3 fake Iranian gunboats and put Navy in them and shoot at the Navy?
I did hear that.
Cy Hirsch broke it, and it was like 2005 or 7.
Okay, one last thing I want to do, then we got to go. I got 3 p.m.
post.
today, so I got to.
Dawson pulled up that post. I was reading it. Okay. I mean, this is a semantics thing, calling it a 12-day war. This is a war that could have gone on for years.
He just calls it a war. That's all.
What is an
that's
active
a semantics
war?
It's an active war.
What is an active war?
He can't just attack
the most
a sovereign
sophisticated
country.
military tech to bomb nuclear sites.
Sovereign meaning
meaning it's recognized.
Yes,
that they have their own
It's not controlled by
politics.
the people.
That doesn't matter. You can't just go attack another country.
I have no problem shooting down and bombing the nuclear facilities of Muslim
I don't care if you don't have a problem with it. The Constitution disagrees with you.
Should we do that to Pakistan?
we need to follow our Constitution.
Your permission slip from Maxine Waters. I'll stick with Trump.
I would refer to the Constitution. Do we have a constitutional republic? Yes or no?
We have a constitutional democratic republic.
We don't have a democratic republic. We have a
saying there's not
constitutional
elements of democracy that we don't vote people in? That's what democracy
Terry
is.
Times says, congressmen do not have the constitutional authority to be treasonous. District judges do not have authority to stop deportations of... Yeah, I agree with those points. It doesn't matter. The power of declaring war is left up to the Congress. And it's very clear, even in the War Powers Act, there's 3 things that
it would have been a
president could do.
humiliation ritual, and it would have been a failure for the mission. You can't get Congress.
Okay, well, that...
But that's the check and balance.
Yeah, it's the check.
That means that there wasn't enough weight to make the action happen.
Okay, let's get beyond even the Constitution. Let's talk about a more important written document. Let's talk about the Bible here, and this is what I want to end it on. On my social media, from some people, which I would say all of them are on the right, and you guys know what I'm talking about here, say that Israel is the chosen people. First of all, let's just talk about how godly of an actor Benjamin Netanyahu is. Hell, you're Jewish, Dawson. Would you say he's a very godly, spiritual man by his actions?
I actually don't. If I recall right, he's not super crazy spiritual. Period. I don't think that he's super religious.
Yeah, but I'm saying even his actions, like, I don't know, basically killing innocent women and children.
I think his motivation here is really important, because the Chabad Lubavitch Rabbi Schneerson, who is now deceased but is the Chabad Messiah that Trump prayed at his grave, or at least, he prayed at his grave. Careful. Schneerson himself told Netanyahu that Netanyahu would be handing the keys to the kingdom to the Messiah. And in prophecy, there's 2 Messiah-esque figures in Judaism. One dies in war, paving the way for the Messiah. So I believe that people's religion influences their foreign policy. So I like to ask, who's in power, what do they believe, and what are they doing about it? So Netanyahu, what does he believe? Schneerson told him, hey, you're going to hand the keys to the Messiah, which means you're on a kamikaze mission to bring about the necessary conditions on the ground to create Pax Judaica, the kingdom of Israel, reclaim the Temple Mount, build the third temple, and usher in the Messianic age, that requires him to be hell-bent on war and overtaking the kingdoms or the countries and empires that are at war with the Israeli kingdom.
For Jake, to answer your question, I don't think that that's something that I can answer or any Jew besides like big rabbis. I think that they're the
well,
only
I just mean look at the actions of this guy. What's going on in Gaza, right? It's just a travesty. It's just, I mean, he's a war criminal in my book. Now, what does that mean? I mean, I don't believe in some international court, holding him liable here. Someone said to me, he goes, well, if Trump's a war criminal, then he could be put to death in international court. I'm like, we're not going to submit our president to some foreign entity that's going to try him. We'll deal with it in our own Congress. And in this case, I'm not arguing for impeachment because, first of all, I think what a stupid thing that would be politically to
well,
fracture.
Watch out for Thomas Massey.
To fracture.
Thomas Massey
Thomas Massey's against it, he said. For the same reasons. Yes, for the same reasons. Okay. Oh, I was watching him on some podcast. I can't remember.
Theo Vaughn?
I didn't watch the Theo Vaughn one. For the same reason I'm articulating here, the MAGA movement gives you some hope that we could actually do some damage to the deep state and get some semblance of freedom back in this country and peace, okay? Because you got to give credit to Trump here. And what MAGA Jesse's saying, and that's why I wanted to lead with MAGA Jesse, is because Jesse is basically stating this was a very specific strike, even though I disagree with his authority, specific strike, and Trump wants peace and he wants out of it. And that does seem to be the case as we sit here, 2:42 on Tuesday, June 24th, 2025, the year of our Lord. So we'll see. Okay, I got to abandon my question on the Israel. We kind of talked about that the other day, but it being in the Bible, but it seems like a very perverse thing that people would say that Genesis chapter 12, they're talking about the modern state of Israel.
Right.
But that is being pushed out there as these are God's chosen people, as if the Christian, and this has come from Christians, by the way,
well,
as if Christians aren't the chosen people of God. I think that is pretty much the religion, but they're actually saying the Jewish people, in particular the country of Israel, the modern state of Israel, is the chosen people. And then I just warn you, if you fall into that thing, that viewpoint, that is a very misguided viewpoint. And right. I don't think that's at all what the scriptures are, which is obviously referring to Abraham's people in Genesis chapter 12.
Right. And then so Cruz tries to save face and then retorts with, it was actually Numbers that I was quoting, which is effectively the same quote. But it is way out of context because it's not specifically dealing with the Abraham lineage. It's you can find that quote several times in the Bible, but it doesn't refer to the Abrahamic lineage. So Cruz actually just looks awful when he tries that retort. I think that when you look at bless those who bless Israel, that's not anywhere in the Bible. It's bless those that bless and curse those that curse. It's referring to the lineage of Abraham. And we had on our show, The Truth Expedition, Rabbi Feldman from Nedurai Karta, and he is well-versed in the Old Testament and has a unique insight into this. But of course, throughout time, God has used the neighbors of Israel against Israel and then has given Israel divine powers to defeat their enemies as well. So it's not an everlasting covenant. It's always been back and forth. And like what Rabbi Feldman says, the difference between you and me is speaking in like a Jewish tradition, is that I follow the teachings of our grandfathers, and your grandfather, but you do not. This idea that Israel is something that is commanded for Jews to try to establish at any and all costs is a incorrect thinking, incorrect understanding, and it goes against the 2,000-3,000 years of tradition that we have. Now, and I'm not saying that Israel shouldn't have, Jewish people shouldn't have a homeland. I think that Israel has the right to exist, but not to this extent at all, where they're effectively using the United States as boots on the ground to fight their wars. I'm done with that.
Okay, I've got like 10 minutes here, guys, so let's go to a post show. If you guys are subscribers, premium subscribers, Make sure to stay around here for a minute after we're done, and we'll do the post show. Tushi wants to come on. He's got some juicy gossip. And I'll give you a quick note on going to YouTube's premium side and why we can't do that today. Get ready for the Rumble Rants here, Jesse. Also, this episode was brought to you by Warren Wessel of Keller Williams Realty. If you're looking to buy home or sell them, give Warren a call at 612-419-7453. And if you are buying a home, go to the good guys at John Galt Mortgage Company. Do you know Tim Chermak, by the way? Kind of same Ron Paul era when I first met you. You don't know Tim?
Name maybe rings a bell.
Okay, good guy. Him and his brother and some others started this company, John Galt Mortgage Company. They're already in the real estate business. They do marketing, social media marketing. Go to johngaltmortgage.com if you're buying a home. Give them a chance of financing that home. And also brought to you by Alpine Capture in St. Cloud, Minnesota. Rumble Rants today.
So we had 2 from Billy22, 2 from O'Bannon, and 1 from Tucker91. So appreciate all you guys tuning in, and thank you for the Rumble Rants.
And I forgot to mention, I did see T-Wall there. So the lovely T-Wall joined us. I don't know if I saw K-Wall. Maybe K-Wall join us later. Thank you guys so much. Team Age, we didn't get to half the stuff I wanted.
Oh, it's all right, man.
Would you do this again?
Yeah, I'd do it again.
Okay, we got to get you back in here. This was a great panel. I talked a lot more than I thought I was going to.
You sound great.
You sound great, sir.
The whole time I was on the verge of like a coughing fit. So thank God that Dayquil kicked in. Let's go to the post show. Everyone else will be back here on Thursday. Take care and God bless.